because all theologians, I would say, they have a special gift. They're very gifted in one thing, that is making simple things complicated. Concept which can be, described or explained in a few words. They turn the simple explanation into something very abstract, so you don't understand. Then when you hear that, you see a theologian. Yeah, that's me. So that's why I'm going to talk to you as a theologian about a theological topic of or a theme called faith here. But I'm going to talk as a modern theologian. I'm going to talk through the story of an ancient theologian, the Genesis author. I believe he was inspired, and he was a theologian too. And in his culture, he chose to teach the topic of faith by telling us a story. A very good storyteller. And in fact, he's talking about the life of his ancestor, Abraham, someone like you and me, with a flesh and blood, somebody real. So it's something concrete but not abstract here. And he's going to share with us today, through this simple passage, one topic called, what is faith? Or in other words, how do you know that a person is a person of faith? Well, let's start with this journey of his ancestor Abraham. Abraham's faith began here, according to verse 1, when he was called by the Lord, who said to him, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." And then following that, God further told him what this journey would entail, what he would experience. All great things here. I'll make you a great nation, I'll bless you, and I'll make your name great, and you will be blessing. All these are there in store for him. All he has to do now is to leave, to go. I like to highlight the word go here, or go from. If this is the beginning of Abraham's faith, then faith is not a point, but faith is the line between 2 points, meaning it's a journey. Eventually, Abraham would be called the father of faith, not because at that particular point he thought that he believed in this Lord or God, but because he went through that journey. As a response to that calling, he went through that journey from one point where he was living then, that was Haran, to the place where the Lord was leading him to. So the first ingredient of the making of a person of faith is the journey of faith. Do we have a journey? That is, I think, a good measurement. A measurement of whether we really, are people of faith. A lot of people claim that they have faith, but very, very likely, I think what they mean faith is something conceptual here. I believe, I'm a believer, but that's all. But there is no journey here. There is no journey, there's no departure from where he was 10 years ago to somewhere God was leading him through his word. I come across a lot of Christians claim to be believers. They were baptized for years. But as I listened to them, I realized that somehow they did not have a journey. This so-called faith was something very theoretical to them, very conceptual to them, because they never departed from their old lives. They never really struggled with sin or old habits. They were never willing to be transformed by Jesus. They were somehow, held back by some problems. They could not go on. One indication of such a situation is usually, as you listen to them, you notice that they have no new stories. Because they don't have a journey, therefore they don't have a new story to tell you. They have no new spiritual experiences. if a person keeps telling the same story, old story, same testimony, or 10 years ago I was like that, Jesus came and saved me, that kind of thing, you know, and after 10 years, no more new stories, no more new narratives, that is, I'm afraid, an indicator that there has not been any journey. Now, James describes such so-called faith as something dead. Faith without action is dead. I think this text is inviting us to ponder upon what we call faith when we claim that we have faith. Do we have a journey to tell? Do we have experiences, our struggles, you know, as we respond to God's word? Each Sunday, for example, come to the sanctuary here, in our worship here, we listen to God's word and we hear clear commands, instructions from the Lord, encouraging us, you know, imploring us to move in a certain direction in our lifestyle, you know, in our choices, in our values and all that. Have we really responded? And have we really stepped out as a response to God's word? I don't know. I've heard that some people are still stuck where they were because they were struggling with this issue, whether or not to pay taxes here. Some people continue to evade taxes here. And as a result, they could not move on in the ministry or in the spiritual life. They are today where they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Now, is there something in us that has held us back from this journey? If you're unwilling to let go of these things that have held us back, I think the text here is telling us that what you are giving up will be replaced by all these promises that I think that is sort of implied here through God's promises to Abraham. In other words, Abraham was called to start this journey to experience all these wonderful things. Imagine, at that time he had a lot of doubts and he did not want to leave his place. All these great things would have been just a theory, would have been just promises. It would have become real, and Abraham would not have been called the father of faith. So the first ingredient of the making of a person of faith is this journey. The second thing is revealed here again, still in the first verse here. God told Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household, and the land I will show you. Now, does the Lord tell him where to go here? Does the Lord give him a destination? I mean, if you fly out of Glasgow, for example, the ticket shows, you know, your destination, right? Amsterdam, Singapore, somewhere. Now, apparently, Abraham was given a ticket without destination. You just go to the airport, check in, you know, check in to at which counter here. But I think what is more serious here is that it's not just a matter of destination; it's a matter of immigration. The Lord is calling Abraham to migrate to another place. Now, I know a lot of my fellow Singaporeans are somehow, although Singapore is quite a nice place, somehow they're not so satisfied, they want to migrate. And their favorite places would be, you know, Australia, Vancouver. I don't think many of them like to go to the States because it's quite dangerous. There are a lot of gardens there. So they prefer places safe like Canada and all that. Now, as far as I know, they did not migrate this way, okay? They had plenty of time to think about it. They wanted to make sure that the place they were going to would be better than Singapore. Greener pasture, so to speak. You know, otherwise, they would not have made that very big move. Therefore, they would maybe went online and then would consult Dr. Google, you know, to find out from Dr. Google about the education, employment, culture, climate, everything. Even then, they did not make that move. They would go, I think on one of the summits, visit the place, take a look at the place to see for themselves what it would be like to live there, kind of thing. They came back. As Christians, of course, they prayed. Until when they were very sure that that place was really better than Singapore, then they made the jump. Abraham, unfortunately, wasn't given this opportunity. He was just told, and go. That is something quite challenging for everybody, right? Because you're told to face the unknown. And what I like to see here is verse 4. So Abraham went as the Lord had told him. And that later on, brothers and sisters, made him a person of faith. He faced the unknown. Because only when someone stepped up and faced the unknown, or stepped into the unknown, his faith began to be alive. That's Abraham. Now this is, I think, a struggle or challenge to anybody. That's why a lot of people have not had a journey. Why? Because they dare not face the unknown. That's why they don't have a new narrative to tell. That's why they don't have a new journey to experience or to share with other people. Because they dare not face the unknown. The fact is, brothers and sisters, faith does not grow in a greenhouse. Faith does not grow in a very steady, calm and smooth sailing life. There's a theory, I don't know, it has to yet have to be proven. People who live in the tropics, the natives of the tropics, they would not be very hardworking because life, is so good. Every day is sunny, unlike Glasgow. Right? Every day is sunny, everything comes easy. You don't have to plant things, you just eat something, fruit, you just drop the seeds, and then tomorrow you have a new tree in there. As a result, according to this theory, the people in the tropics, the natives not immigrants, sorry, they don't know how to work hard because it's so smooth sailing, it's so stable. Same thing with our faith. If our life is very stable, there are no challenges, and we don't want to face the unknown, of course, we can't claim that we have faith, because if you look at here, all the people of faith are people who have gone through the unknown. Talk about Abraham, you talk about David, you talk about Samuel, you talk about all the prophets, you talk about Jesus, Paul and all that. All these people are of faith. Now especially you turn to Hebrews 11. You see a list of people of faith there. The Hall of Fame of people of faith there. You read the stories, read the testimonies. They're all testimonies of facing the unknown. Just as Hebrews 11, let me see which verse here. Shall we turn to Hebrews 11? I think the author sums up Abraham's faith this way, in verse 8. 11:8. By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went even though he did not know where he was going. That's called faith, according to this author. I was told that there are two types of beginners when it comes to swimming lessons. The first type are those who volunteer to jump into the water. And the other type are those who are pushed into the water. And I was told that most beginners are pushed into the water. I think it's quite similar to our faith experience. Maybe most people, including me maybe, unwilling to face the unknown. Most of us are people who are pushed into the unknown. Somehow God has permitted some bad things have happened, in our lives. We have no choice. Suddenly, life becomes very unstable, uncertain, You know, we lost something we love. We lost something that used to be so secure. You know, we placed all our hope on it, and suddenly it's taken away. Why? So very often we ask, why God has allowed such bad things to happen to good people? Well, I think perhaps the Lord is telling us that faith cannot grow in our greenhouses somehow. Something will have to happen to push us into a jihad. However, again, I admire Abraham for the fact that he's not someone who was pushed into the unknown. He volunteered and jumped into the pool here. Verse 4. So Abraham went as the Lord had told him. That means he believed every promise that was made to him. Something that we need to learn. So far so good. We have this hero of faith, you know, who was not afraid to face the unknown, and who had this journey, wonderful journey, and we would call him our hero of faith. However, something happened, I think, in verse 10 here. Shall we read verse 10 here? Now there was a famine in the land. Let's stop there and pause a while. It might not mean much to many of us, but it would mean a lot to an Israelite or a Hebrew like Abraham. You know, the Hebrews, the ancient Israelite, they had this theology or concept of this obedience brings, you know, blessing, disobedience brings punishment or discipline, okay, which is a very Deuteronomic thing, okay. So if someone obeys the Lord's command, he would expect great blessings. He would expect some kind of reward to affirm his faith. You can see the story of Job and many other stories in the Old Testament. Okay? Especially if someone obeys to the point of very self-sacrificial. I would say Abraham was quite self-sacrificial when he obeyed the Lord's command to leave, you know, Haran, because according to the story here, when he left, he had a lot of things. He had many things. He probably had an established career there. He had to leave behind a very comfortable, you know, established career, to start somewhere else. Okay, a big sacrifice. A person like this would expect God's protection and God's blessing, but what he got here instead was famine, no food. Now, I think a person of faith would ask why. If you're so used to in the so-called the theology of retribution, if you obey, you get blessed. You know, you disobey, you get punished, kind of thing. You would ask, is it fair? Well, the text is quiet here. Always, very often, you know, in old time stories, quiet. But we're invited to be in that kind of situation, ask questions. Why is it fair? I think I would ask such questions. But interestingly, you notice that at this moment, God was completely silent. You know, the last time God spoke to Abraham was in verse 7. The first time was in verse 1, when he called him. And then the second time was when he arrived at this promised land, Shechem, okay, the place called Shechem. God spoke him, and it was very encouraging. You know, God was so near. But now, as he was facing this famine, somehow the story sort of was shortened, a lot of details were taken out, and God was completely silent here. All the way until verse 20, God did not speak anymore. This situation has a different effect on Abraham. If a few months ago, when he was called, when he heard God's promises, his faith was so much alive. Maybe he really felt that God was so near to him. When he arrived at Shechem, for example, and God spoke to him again, then he moved from there all the way from the north, all the way through to the south. Just as if he was spiritually or symbolically claiming the promised land. Such a great faith when God spoke to him. Now at this moment, we notice that God has not spoken. I think God's silence has a different effect perhaps on Abraham. Instead of faith, maybe a lot of questions. And he didn't know why. Now I want to tell you that such a moment is the most unpleasant and scariest moment in my life. When you need God most, He's completely quiet. Those were moments when I prayed hard, but I felt that my prayer went up and hit the ceiling, bounced back. It didn't leave the ceiling. It didn't leave the building. Okay. I would turn to the Bible, looking for God's word, for assurance, for a small yet comforting voice. I didn't get any. I went to church and listened to sermons. Hopefully God would speak to me through the preacher. Some comforting words, some assurance, some guidance in the middle of my darkest moment. I got nothing. God was completely silent. Very scary. I asked a lot of questions. Why? Then I found the answer in the New Testament. In 1 Peter chapter 1, Peter was writing to Christians who were suffering for the sake of their faith in Christ. They were persecuted because they said they were Christians, and because they were faithful to their faith. And they were also perhaps asking, why we obey the Lord's command, we accepted the gospel, we followed Jesus, why do we have to go through all this? And Peter wrote to them. Shall we turn to verse 6? In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Why? Verse 7. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. What Peter is saying here is that, this is a process of faith in which our faith is being refined, like gold being refined, so that we may one day receive the praise, glory, and honor we deserve from our Lord Jesus Christ. Abraham was later on called the father of faith because he went through this refinement. His faith was tested and refined. In other words, he was made a person of faith, not just because he had a journey, not just because he there faced the unknown, but because also he was refined. And that made his faith genuine, according to Peter. Very often I come to church, a lot of churches, and notice a lot of people show their faith, quite outwardly, very obvious, especially after a big, what we call retreat back home, or church camp, where you got this fiery preacher, very motivational preacher. Everybody is on fire. Everybody says, "Okay, Lord, I'm going to serve you tomorrow. I will serve you in the Sunday school. I will read the Bible from cover to cover, everything." A lot of promise in those days. Wow, great faith! You're very encouraging as a preacher, right? But unfortunately, I would say that kind of faith is remarkable, very encouraging to a preacher like me. However, in terms of its value, it's very limited in a way because it is untested. It's a kind of faith which has not passed QC. Now, the Lord wants to see faith in our church, but He wants to see faith which has passed QC. Because only such a faith can withstand challenges outside there, storms in your lives, and perhaps failures, hurts, unpleasant things. And that would make a person of faith. And Abraham became the person of faith because he went through that. So next time, or even at the moment, if you're going through such situation as what Abraham was going through here, and he felt that God was so far away, God is silent, kind of thing. Well, think of what Peter says, that, well, faith is being tested. But I must confess here, it's easy for me to speak here as if, it's very easy to have that kind of, attitude, to have that kind of faith. In reality, no. No, in reality, no. And Abraham is also like us. He is, a man of flesh and blood. And when God is silent, he has to do something, and he decides to move downward, to Egypt, because of the Nile. There's plenty of food there, and he moves down, and he is going to solve this problem of famine, by further migration to Egypt. However, this solution turned out to be also a new problem, and that's the irony of life. Our solutions are usually the beginning of our new problems. And very soon Abraham realized that he's going to face a new problem. What's his problem? Well, his problem has to do with his wife. Now you ask them, what's wrong with his wife? Well, there's nothing wrong with his wife except that she's too gorgeous. The Bible says, she is already 65, but she's still very, very pretty. Well, sisters, you might be very interested to know, right? How would a 65-year-old woman would be still, so gorgeous, so much so that his husband is so worried? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any explanations. You can check commentaries. Commentaries offer you different explanations, but none is really certain about the reason for this. I'm certain, however, there was no SK2 at that time, no more real. Everything was real, I would say, right? Now, having a beautiful wife could be a great blessing, but could be also a danger to Abraham. Isn't it a good blessing, to have a 65-year-old wife walking on the street and people want men still, would be so you, that kind of thing, But it would be also a danger, according to Abraham. You know why? Because he thought when he entered Egypt, and some, Egyptian man, got interested in his wife, maybe he would murder him for his wife. So he came up with an idea. As they entered the territory of Egypt, he pulled his wife aside. This is in verse 11 and 12. Said, "Well, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and it will kill me. Now, can you do me a favor? When you go in there, don't call me honey, darling. Call me Coco, brother. I'll call you sis. Then I will be safe." Well, they went in there. Then they checked in as not Mr. and Mrs. Abraham or Abram, but as brother and sister. And I think his worry is warranted here. So, because the Bible says it quite clearly here in verse 14. But Abram came to Egypt. The Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman. It's confirmed. It's not a subjective feeling here. It's true that everybody saw. I know this woman confirmed that she was a very beautiful woman. Okay. Now I want to highlight the word saw here. The NIV does not or cannot maybe bring out the force of this verb in its original language. This word saw actually means something like you set your eyes on something and you can't take your eyes off it. It reminds me of a song. Can't take my eyes off you. Or worse, it says sometimes it's translated as into ogling. Imagine as Abraham and Sarai walking on the street of Egypt, and as the desert winds was blowing the tresses of Sarai. And every man on the street. Everything stood still. There might have been some, accidents involving, of course, horse carriages. And according to the text, her fame spread very far and deep into the court of Pharaoh. Even his officials praised Sarai in front of Pharaoh. I imagine these officials were people like cabinet ministers today. Okay. So here, when they met Pharaoh, probably in the cabinet meeting, instead of talking about some national issues like immigrations and whatever, they talk about this beautiful woman. Imagine, Pharaoh said, "Do you think our budget is enough for next year?" And somebody, one of the, maybe minister of, home affairs, said, "Oh, boss, have you heard the story about this woman?" And the others, yeah, we should. Oh, you should have her. Well, Pharaoh got interested, and then he eventually decided to bring her in, because of the fact, in those days, kings somehow they have a hobby, not collecting stamps or Coca-Cola bottles. They had this habit of collecting beauties. They wanted to collect, as many beauties as possible from different countries, so that on some special occasion they can show off. Remember Ahasuerus, right? Esther, and all, chapter 1, all right? Something similar to that. So probably he did not have a Hebrew beauty yet. He had maybe Ethiopians and Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Arabian, whatever, but he did not have a Hebrew. Yeah, I want to have one. I wanted to, one for all this while. So, according to text here, he sent or give orders to his men to bring her into the court, into the palace. And since Abraham claimed that this is his sister, well, as a king, he wants to treat him well. And look at what is written here. Okay, Pharaoh gave orders about Abraham and to his men, and they said, oh, sorry, not here, not. Let me see. Verse 16. He treated Abram well for her sake. And Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants and camels. Now, I want to pay attention to donkeys and camels. I read a book about the ancient animals in the Bible, a very interesting book. And I understood that at that time, there were sort of different pedigrees of camels or donkeys. Just like we have different makes of cars today. Yeah, very cheap ones, like the Kia maybe, or no, QQ, to the very expensive one like BMW or Mercedes. Different pedigrees. And I think as a king, Pharaoh would, I think, give something of high pedigree, so maybe like BMWs and Mercedes to Abram, right? Now, something is very interesting here. Suddenly, Abraham became super rich with all these BMWs and Mercedes given to him. However, there's something that we have to pay attention to. This is now, or rather, this Abraham in Egypt is not the same as the Abraham we saw just now in Canaan or in Haran. The one in Haran is Canaan, it was this Abraham full of faith. But here we have this Abraham full of flaws. First, he lied to everyone who asked about the status or the identity of the woman next to him. Right? Secondly, although I think it was not his intention, he became very rich by giving away his wife. Right? Just imagine, especially sisters here, you imagine that you were Sarai, you were taken into the court of Pharaoh, and that night you were shivering, this comes up, Pharaoh was going to sleep with you, and you were afraid. And of course, as a woman, when you're afraid, your first person maybe you thought of would be your husband, okay? But now suddenly you've been told that your husband was counting, his BMWs and Mercedes outside there. What would you say? What would you say? Would you still call him father of faith? When I shared this in one of my care groups in Singapore, one of the ladies there was very shocked, and she was very, very upset. She stood up and said, "If I was divorcing." I said, well, that's a very, very normal reaction. You know why? Because we all want heroes. Even in church, we're looking for heroes, spiritual heroes. But we can't. When we see somebody like Abraham, we can't stand or throw away this guy. It's just a trash, right? However, something interesting here in verse 17. But, I like this part here. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh, and it's also because of Abraham by Sarah. And then Pharaoh got the message. And he realized, hey, something is wrong here. And then he realized later on that this woman actually was married, and this guy was actually the husband. So, the Bible says, Pharaoh gave orders about Abraham to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. He got richer and he got back his wife. Double blessing. Hey, brothers and sisters, have you asked this simple question? Do you think he deserves this? After all the flaws that we talked about just now? Definitely he doesn't. In the Bible, when somebody does not deserve good treatment, special favors, but the Lord still, treated him or her that way, that action or that thing in the Bible is called grace. And I realize this grace is inextricable from Abraham's journey of faith. You know why? Because later on I noticed his faith actually grew on God's grace. Because this is not the first time he sort of made a serious blunder. Because as we read on, you find that in Genesis 16, he'll make another big blunder. When his faith is getting very, very, very weak. Now he listens to his wife, and then he marries Hagar in order to have an heir. Remember that? Okay. And then also when God eventually tells him, next year you're going to have a son by Sarah. Don't call her Sarah, and I will say Sarah. He doesn't believe. He thinks that this God is making a joke on him, right? And later on, I don't know why, in verse 20, he uses the same rules again as he did in Egypt 20 years later. He claims, hey, this is my sister again. And again, it doesn't work. Notice that? It goes to show that this man of faith, so-called father of faith, has a lot of mistakes, has a lot of flaws. Yet each time, when he makes a mistake, somehow God's grace, is offered to him, and somehow he's lifted up, and he continues his journey. And that's how he becomes the father of faith. I realize it is important, of course, to have a journey to be a man of faith. It is important to have the courage to face the unknown. It is important also to have our faith refined. But I think it is most important to have this fourth ingredient, that is God's grace. As a young boy, I had a dream. The dream was to become a pianist, playing Chopin, Tchaikovsky, and dum 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 dum. But unfortunately, until today, it remains a dream. Unfortunate dream. You know why? Because I got stuck one day. Eventually, when I got the opportunity to learn to learn the piano, I was a bit too old, and I didn't have the patience to practice. And I realized it was so difficult even to play a simple piece of music. Not dum 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 dum. You don't forget. Very simple. I remember after a year, my teacher, piano teacher, said, "Okay, you know, in a few weeks' time, you're going to have a final exam. I'll give you a very simple piece of music, simple to him, not to me." So I spent several weeks practicing, and I somehow did not get it right. I made a lot of mistakes here. I remember on the day of the examination, my teacher was sitting next to me, and he looked at me and said, "Are you ready?" I said, "No." "Oh, okay. In that case, okay. Well, we're not going to start with the exam. Why don't you practice once and let me see?" I said, "Oh, this is practice, okay, no exam." So I felt relaxed. So I played quite confidently, you know. And after a few bars, my teacher said, "Oh, I think you made a mistake here. You made a mistake here." Oh goodness, I didn't know. I thought I was all right. I already did not have much confidence. After that comment, you know, I lost all my confidence. But he said, "Oh, never mind, finish it. Just carry on and finish it." Okay, I just finished that short piece. And after that, he looked at me and said, "Maybe you need to practice one more time." Okay, one more time. And I knew something was wrong. He was dissatisfied, right? He wanted one more time. First one, more mistakes. He said, "Oh, never mind, one more time." 3, 4 times. The more I practiced, the more I got nervous, the more mistakes I made. And eventually he said, "I think you're ready now." Oh. Well, I had to go through that piece again, and I made more mistakes. And then I said to myself, "Well, that's it. I think I failed." Then the teacher looked at me and said, "Wow, we practiced quite a number of times this time around. I think the first one was the best. Let's count that as your exam." It was a relief, but I knew that it was not really good. If he could, you know, he would give me a C, I would be very happy. Then I eventually got my results, and I saw. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe my eyes. I got an A minus. I was so ashamed of myself. And that was the last time I touched the piano. No more piano. But that lesson, that experience, I think, sort of led me to think of my journey of faith. I think God's expectations of my faith is like that piece of, you know, music. To him, it's simple. But to me, you know, no matter how hard I try, somehow I make mistakes. I blunder here and there, and I think this is Abraham, you know. But the Lord is just like that piano teacher. He sit next to me and continue to encourage me. It's okay. Why don't you carry on? You know, just finish it. If it's not seven, one more time. And each time he will give me a grade which is higher than I really deserve. And that is grace. And I realize, like Abraham, if I am to finish my journey of faith, if I am to become a person of faith, I really need His grace. Let me sum up. It is great to be a person of faith like Abraham. But do we have what he had? First of all, do we have a journey to tell? Secondly, do we have the courage to face the unknown? Thirdly, do we have our faith refined by His silence? These three are not easy to come by. Therefore, we need the fourth ingredient, the fourth factor, God's grace. My prayer is that everyone here be able to finish his or her journey of faith by God's grace, so that one day when we face Him, we'll say, "Come in, faithful servant." you, people of faith. Let's pray. Father, your word has shown on us, and we realize our weaknesses, we realize our shortcomings. We pray for your grace. We pray that we too, who are actually spiritual descendants of Abraham, maybe like Abraham, will become a person of faith, and we too may receive your praises when we see you. We commit everyone here, Lord, to you.